this session. I was just speaking with some of the conference organizers, and I get to give away one of these toy helicopters at the end, or whomever asks a question which I decided the best question. So somebody's going to win a Scalia toy mini helicopter. It flies and everything, I guess. So it has all kinds of warnings on the back. Don't kill yourself. Don't kill your kids. Be careful. Is it Scala driver? It could be a embedded Scala. I don't think we have embedded Scala yet, but maybe in the future. So yeah, I'm going to focus in on what's next. Originally, I was talking about Rails and Scala, but those are two big, different, separate subjects. So I decided to narrow it down just to Scala. And I'll take you through different aspects of Scala. From my side, last time I wrote code substantially was probably 30 years ago. I worked with some sophisticated UI UX prototyping tools maybe about 20 years ago. I have lots of activity directly with SoftServe's customers and with our architecture team. So my role at SoftServe is defining the technology consulting offerings and also the software frameworks. We build some reusable components and frameworks at SoftServe. Are there any SoftServe employees in the room besides myself? Ah, excellent. 2, great. 3, 4. Ah, good. Lots of colleagues in the room. That's great. Excellent. Look forward to meeting all of you. I come to Lviv 6 to 8 times a year. And lots of the people I work with in Lviv are coming over to the United States working with our customers and our prospects. So, a couple of questions I'd like to involve the audience early. How many of you have written an entire project in Scala or a component or part of a project in Scala so far? Go ahead. One hand going up. How many have played around with Scala? Maybe you've downloaded the distributions from TypeSafe or somebody and you've started to play around. Okay, good. So it looks like we've got an audience that is right for this discussion. I'm going to go through the history of Scala. That's a pretty straightforward history. Scala is what's called in English or French a portmanteau. This means they take two words and smash them together, right? Scala stands for scalable. Law is language. Scala is a scalable language. I'll go over the key characteristics of it. I'll give you a couple of facts about how much usage is going on in Scala, where it ranks. Lots of development environments, programming languages to choose from. This is not extremely new language, but language that in the last 3 or 4 years has gained a lot of popularity. I'm going to take you through some of the most well-known, successful example applications, very high level again. We have a case that I can share anonymously. I won't tell you who the client is or who the prospect was, but I can give you some specifics where a potential customer came to us at SoftServe with a specific set of requirements to build a certain type of system in Scala. I'll share with you a little bit of the detail about that opportunity. Some of the results. We actually did a test development assignment for that opportunity. And then I'll talk a little bit about the future, and of course there's the Q&A and giving away the helicopter. Okay. I don't mind taking questions during the presentation, but if you're more comfortable, I don't mind doing questions at the end also. However you prefer. So the history of Scala is like one genius, Swiss guy, Martin Odersky. Right? However, this genius guy made very smart decisions early on in trying to develop this latest version of what he wanted as an architect and a developer. And the practical side of him said, Java has a huge ecosystem, extremely popular virtual machine, all kinds of tools and support around it. I want to build something better than Java, but I know I can't start from scratch. I need that infrastructure. I need the libraries, the tools, and everything around the language. So he's stuck to the Java infrastructure, to the JVM and its libraries. So you can really see Scala as a language which extends Java and really is part of the infrastructure of Java by design. That was a very, 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 very good decision from a commercial standpoint. He's currently the chief architect at TypeSafe, and he's also a professor at the École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne, that's in Switzerland. He, in the 90s, was working at Borland. For those of you familiar, Borland is a US company, had many innovations in software development and languages, specifically Object Pascal was very popular in the development world. Maybe about 15 years ago, doing rapid client-server development. Some people might be familiar, many of the team who designed Object Pascal wound up at Microsoft about 5 years later and did original work on C#, actually. Martin Odersky also did some work on what are called the generics in Java 5, and he's a compiler developer. So, this is a guy who's been working on compilers from very, very early in his career. So very smart guy, but very practical guy. He's really the history of Scala. So Scala is a functional programming language. This is the main thing about Scala, it's functional. So it does not distinguish between statements and expressions. It has anonymous functions, type inference, delimited continuations, higher order functions, lots of algebraic data types. And on the right, I kind of have a popularity of languages chart, and you see Scala is not even on here, right? Scala doesn't make the top 20 right now when you do these surveys. And these things jump around too. Of course, it's C, Java, C++. Objective-C, a lot of people developing for iOS nowadays. C#, goes right on down the line, but there is no Scala in the top 20. So, what are some of the additional key characteristics? And here you can look a little bit more closely at something like collections operators. If you look at the scope and richness of collection operators in an environment like Python versus Scala, you can see the difference pretty clearly. Scala has much, much, much more power and flexibility and capability for collection operators. Jumping by one. Let's keep going here. Here's a couple of key facts. In 2010, there was 160 people at the Scala Day User Conference, which was hosted by probably Martin Odersky and his organization at that time. That's about the size of this event right here. You think we have 160 people here? Yeah, so just 3 years ago, it was pretty small. Not many people. They held the event in New York City, I think 3 weeks ago. There were like 800 people attending. Big growth very rapidly in the last 3 years. If I go to a site like Stack Overflow and I look at the tagging on different topics per day and per week, that's what the D and the W stands for. If I look at R, which is kind of a statistical programming language that data scientists use to do algorithmic math models, typically on predictive analytics projects, you see that there are 74 tagged topics in Stack Overflow a day. So you go right on down here and you see Scala is getting up there, right? Maybe almost as common for programmers to be asking questions about Scala as Ruby Rails. The other thing that's happened with Scala is it's been discovered in Silicon Valley by the biggest social network companies who, most of you might be aware, are working with large amounts of user-generated content. So the big challenges in places like LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook all revolve around huge amounts of user-generated content and building systems at scale for many, many, many millions of users and terabytes and petabytes of data. So LinkedIn has built an entire framework in Scala called the Norbert Framework. Twitter has made a huge commitment to to developing in Scala. Queuing, the social graph store, the people search, the highest performance API on Twitter now, all written in Scala. And also very interesting, I noticed while I was doing my research for this, Twitter has a Scala school. Anybody here who wants to learn more about Scala can go to Scala School. It's an online education provided by Twitter. It's in 2 languages, English and Russian. Very interesting, right? So they already are thinking where they want to get more Scala programmers from. The Guardian is another very interesting big customer who has done a major rewrite of their content management properties for their newspaper content. And so they've ported their entire API from Java to Scala, and they've built a very high traffic mobile site using the Play framework, which is kind of a web UI tool written above Scala and above Akka that comes from TypeSafe. So TypeSafe is the open source provider of Scala, but the TypeSafe has expanded their company mission. So the last little bit of data is to look at the growth from a site called Indeed.com. This is the growth in job openings for software engineers with different programming language skills. And you see from around 2010 what's going on with demand for Scala software engineers. It's called, in English language business terms, hockey stick growth. That's what that's called. Okay, I'm moving pretty fast through this. That's okay. We'll leave a lot of time for questions. TypeSafe is a venture-funded company. They're based in the US and in Switzerland. They've had, I'd say, 50 or 100 implementations. It's very early. This company is like 2 or 3 years old, but it's the most focused commercial software development company in the Scala market so far. Here's a list of their customers and what's being done. Ubiquio is an infrastructure management tool. So this is a tool that you would use if you're maybe trying to manage hundreds or thousands of instances in EC2. You're running maybe a global infrastructure as a service, running very commercially popular SaaS applications. So they're using message queuing and the Akka framework. That's called Ubiquio. Beamstream is a new social network. They're focused on the education community in North America. So they built a new social network site, very scalable, built on Scala as well. Ticketfly is an interesting case. You can look at these all in detail, by the way, on the TypeSafe website. Ticketfly is an online event management ticket purchasing solution. The entire site and service was built in Scala as a finite state machine. Great idea with tickets, because you don't want it to be possible in any instant for anybody to buy the same set of seats. So you have people, at highly popular events. When ticket sales start, people come to that site, they start buying tickets very rapidly. So you need to be able to very rapidly remove ticket inventory after a transaction so that no 2 people can try to purchase the same seats. So it's a massively concurrent system. Scala has a very elegant, very efficient solution to the problems of concurrency. It's one of the reasons why it scales so well. Last case is a company called Lucid Software. They're trying to kind of replace PowerPoint or be a library for the UI part of business intelligence applications. So it's a SaaS charting application. Lucid is also built in Scala, takes very, very good advantage of the language itself. So here's some more example applications. These are customers of TypeSafe. Okay. I promised you I would talk to you about an anonymous case, very interesting case that we went through at SoftServe about 2 months ago. Nice opportunity. Venture-funded big data analytics startup. So this is like a company CEOs like Genius from Microsoft, worked on first Hadoop implementations in Azure for Microsoft, CTO from Silicon Valley, venture capital just gave them $5 million because they're smart guys and they have a good vision. So what's their vision? Their vision is that they want to build the biggest in-memory columnar database running on EC2 ever. They want to be able to connect it to Hadoop. They want to be able to, near real time, load up to a terabit of specific data from Hadoop into this columnar in-memory database. And then they want to run analytics on it. And the analytics might be related to predicting pricing in the commodities market or projecting insurance rates for older people who have various illnesses. Looking to do rapid predictive analytics on big data sets, right? So the idea is, for those of you who have some familiarity with Hadoop, problem with Hadoop nowadays is that you can write queries, but the bigger the data you run the query against, the longer it takes to get the answer. And you don't really know whether you came up with a very good query until after it runs, right? So you write this complicated query for a few days, you run it, it takes 2 days to run, 6 days later you see you asked the wrong question, right? So you don't want that. So the founder of this company said, I can solve this problem. I'm going to put as much data as I can in memory in a columnar format and get really high performance responses on those relatively big subsets of big data. So this is his vision for his company. And then he said, okay, I'm going to hire a team, and he focused in on this part of the world. Pretty smart guy. Him and the other founders said, we're going to hire a team somewhere in Belarus, Ukraine, Russia, maybe Poland. And so they created a test programming exercise, and their intent was to select the team that would do the development on this project, which is going to be shown in February of 2014 at an event in Silicon Valley, based on who won the exercise. So the CEO and the CTO would look at the results, and it was meant to be done in about 72 hours. And it really needed a team, so we said, okay, we're game, we'll go after this, and we put a team together. So at our company, we have some data scientists now. We're going to have more at SoftServe. One of our data scientists he's a great NumPy programmer, he's a great R programmer, he's really a mathematician, in addition to speaking multiple languages and being able to talk to customers. Really talented guy. So he led the statistical and math modeling part of the project. One of our tech leads on one of our biggest customers is like a lot of you in the room. He's been playing with Scala for about a year or so, maybe a year and a half. And he loves it. He can see right away what's good about it. So we put him on the project. We had to have somebody, this whole thing had to be deployed in EC2. So we had to have, kind of DevOps-oriented engineer who knew how to spin up instances, do EC2 configuration, maybe use S3, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we had one person like that. And then the project really required us to create a small-scale warehouse or a small-scale data model. So we had one of our data warehouse architects. So this is the team we pulled together. They worked for about 3 days. And we wound up producing 4 separate assignments. There were actually 4 deliverables for this test case. One of them was a job tracker and named Node Web UI. Here you can see a little bit of what we produced there on this. This was written in a particular Scala UI framework. Job priorities, usernames, monitoring different jobs, summary of the cluster that was used. It was a Hadoop cluster that we were using. So we were doing a mini version of what they wanted. We were loading a bunch of data out of Hadoop into an EC2 instance. We were running some analytics against that data. We were producing some UI results. And this was all laid out by the ISV. So they wanted to see how people that they were thinking about hiring. They're hiring a team of 8 that were going to work for almost a year on this project. So that's what that looked like. On the fourth test set, we were using the Scala micro framework, Scala Spark, and a Scala-based web framework. And, this was pretty much the results we got. Pretty simple set of results. We used templates, routing cookies, flashes, and commands. It was a shopping cart type solution here. List of available products, add them to your cart, remove them from the cart, check out. And again, this was not a full application. This was just like demonstrate your capabilities to us, and if we think we won, by the way, we won the test case. We got an email from the CEO said, "Soft serve, you won. We're going to hire you." And then on the kickoff meeting, about 3 days later, not the CEO, but the VP of engineering was in the kickoff meeting, and he determined that he wanted only dedicated staff and didn't want any of our people on a part-time basis, which we were offering him our top people on a part-time basis for them to train our own dedicated staff. He said, "That's no good. I want only the people that are going to work on this thing only for 10 months. You cheated, you brought your smart people, and you're not giving them to me full-time, so sorry, we're taking another company," which was okay. We learned a lot from the exercise, and we're growing pretty fast at SoftServe, so we can't do business with everybody. We'd like to, but the reality is you can't. So it was a success for us, really. We got to see very quickly how we would leverage Scala and R in a next generation analytics, predictive analytics, big data project, which is a very hot part of the market in the United States right now. I'm at trade shows 2, 3, 4 times a month. Right now I'm seeing at every event 3 or 4 or 5 new investor-funded analytics, predictive analytics, big data software companies that are getting money and are looking for developers and looking for teams. And it seems also like every single vertical industry now is realizing that data is an asset, and they want to try to develop some insight and some actionable insight from data. And it's both the data they're collecting as a business, but it's also data that they can get from social networks and from other public sources. And they're looking to be smart about combining the data that they own as an organization and the data that's out there on the public internet to make better decisions or to develop new service offerings. So there's a very big opportunity now in the marketplace in predictive analytics, which is better and better if you have better and better data sources. Scala is a very good fit for that opportunity, I would say. That's my conclusion. That's why I'm talking about Scala here today, because I believe the combination of certain statistical programming languages in the hands of data scientists and Scala with the system architects is a really good approach to going after this market opportunity. So, what's the future? I'm going to get through this in about 20 minutes, so we'll have a lot of time for question and discussion. TypeSafe is likely to be a very successful software company. They've gone beyond simply being the open source leader of the language implementation itself, and they've built a development platform. So they have Akka, which is a very scalable framework based on the concept of actors. They have a web UI development environment called Play. So they've created a Scala platform company. You can build very complex, very scalable systems on the TypeSafe platform. Also, what we've seen in the United States in particular in the software industry is that while ISVs set standards and important standards for software 10, 15 years ago, the most important companies were companies like Oracle and Microsoft. In the last 5 years, the most important companies for setting new software standards and new platforms are coming out of the social network space. So LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Google, these are the companies that are driving a lot of the key open source projects that have some of the best technologies coming from the US. So the commercial ISVs are not unimportant. However, they are less significant and less important And the fact that Scala has been so heavily embraced for really challenging projects at Twitter, like the streaming API, really challenging projects at LinkedIn, means that it is held in very, very high regard by that part of the development community, is likely to get even more momentum. Java 8 is, I think, coming out soon. They've kind of made some more steps towards adding more functional programming. They've got closures, they've got lambdas. Scala still has many more rich functional features. If you go into any of the LinkedIn groups where all the Scala software engineers are hanging out, you'll see pretty clearly that they don't believe that Java 8 is something intended to kill Scala. And Scala, as I said earlier, is embedded into the Java ecosystem. It's a compatible extension to the entire Java platform. So I think it's protected and it has the momentum. And if I was, if it was 30 years ago and I was trying to be a great software engineer, I'd be spending my time on this platform. Without question. Okay, that's about it. I've been presenting for about 25 minutes. So hopefully everybody has some good questions and comments. Yes, sir.
Questions. First of all, I have a question actually. First about trends. How increase this type of projects which goes to outsourcing or staffing, which for compare previous years and now on Scala, just from personal experience. And second one about probably it's not a bit complicated to find Scala developers in Ukraine, and are you going to open courses the same as Ukraine Center for Java, the same as for Scala? And how you maybe have some internal programs, how you grow the Scala developers?
So I understand your second question, so I'm going to take the second question first, and then I'll ask you to re-clarify the first one.
Okay.
Yes, it looks like we will commit at SoftServe University to developing Scala courseware and Scala certification track. I don't think it will be in the next 90 days. I think it's going to take a little longer than that. I guess personally, I think we'll have that kind of education available in 6 to 12 months at SoftServe University. I think that best Java developers will have a natural ability to learn Scala rapidly. And in the case of the Scala people that we have within SoftServe right now, it's not a huge number, but we have some. This is where they all came from. They're all Java techniques. So, that's the answer to your second question. And we're seeing more opportunities each month for projects in Scala. It's going up, yeah, it's going up. It's a definite upward trend. And again, my guess is it will accelerate based on the other numbers that I showed. And now, I'm sorry, what was your first question?
About the strength of projects. As you can see, there is only one person in this room who has experience with Scala, but actually I have several friends and so on. They wants to have such experience, but actually at the moment in Lviv not so much projects in Scala, because this trend of first everything new developed in the United States, then starts moving when the United States can cover everything. That's why I have questions connected.
Well, it's people like me have to go out and bring the projects back to Lviv. That's the short answer. And this was why I brought up the other case, that we were on the verge of bringing such a project into SoftServe. Not sure how we would have staffed it, but we would have obviously had 6 or 8 very knowledgeable Scala people. By early next year, they would have all finished one commercial project, right? So I think that's the way the process works. You all work for a company. Maybe some of you are entrepreneurs. We have to win a deal. And then when we win the deal, we come back and staff it and develop it. So that's how it works.
2 or 3 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I read the article it was like an interview with James Gustin. And he told that at that time like full replacement for Java. So and he like 3 years ago, the father of Java didn't saw any like good evidence that Scala became the mainstream. Do you feel that something changed? Because like this article, after this article, I decided that it's not time for me to learn Scala yet. So I'm wondering if now it's time to do it.
Yeah, I do think that Martin Odersky in particular and some of the people at TypeSafe have a more general experience building a platform company. And I think the fact that they've gone beyond thinking of it as a language and have specifically developed a strategy to commercialize it as a platform means that they kind of heard the feedback. You know, okay, it's a little way to do functional programming in Java, that's all it is. So, you know, if I have some special needs and I'm writing a general purpose Java app, maybe I'll use it. They went well beyond that in the last 2 years in the way they've evolved TypeSafe as a company. And I think it's been successful. I think TypeSafe has lots of money in the bank, lots of customers they're working with. Some are big enterprise customers. They have clients in the financial services industry. They have social network clients. So I think they changed it. You know, my answer to you is they heard the feedback and decided, well, what do we want to be? And they decided that they wanted to really create a strong, complete platform. That's why they found Akka, or modified Akka. That's why they built the Play framework, because they wanted to create, you know, a more complete solution. Still tied to the Java ecosystem. So, you know, Java is a lot of things, right? Java is a lot of things. It's a lot of components, a lot of elements to that platform. And I think they believe that they can kind of create an entire platform layer above the JVM and a lot of the other Java tools that will carve out part of the market successfully. We'll see whether that happens, but they've had more success for sure in the last 2 or 3 years. And everybody has to make these kind of decisions, where you're going to spend your time and your energy. That's the one thing we all have a limitation on. Your personal time and what you want to invest in. So.
When you show the Stack Overflow class, there was also closure. And what do you think about this language? Does it have a bright future?
You know, I think less and less, but it's, let me go back to that one slide. Yeah, so, you know, in this one slide here, it looks like closure is about a third as popular on Stack Overflow as Scala. I don't know Clojure really well. I don't have a good answer. I just think the popularity numbers. I don't think that Clojure's got the same momentum either in the social network implementations or as a platform. It will be interesting to see whether there are other companies like TypeSafe coming along for Scala. And if there are, that will make it have even more momentum.
So I got a kind of large question which consists of several smaller ones.
Sure.
So you shown this test case of application you developed. So
Actually, 4 mini applications.
Okay. So question number 1. Did selection of Scala language was dictated by customers, or you decided to use Scala for this application?
That one's easy. It was dictated by the customer.
Okay, so do you know any ground for why do they have they chosen Scala as a language?
Yeah, the CEO and founder of the company has very close connections with some of the Scala projects at LinkedIn and Twitter. Familiar with lead architects on those projects, and believe, based on kind of company he's trying to create, that Scala was the only choice.
So if we take a look at Scala, it ends up at Java by right?
Yep, exactly.
And which means for me that the same application might be developed in pure Java. So
Absolutely.
why? So what Scala brings to developers? So why developers should select Java as a language? Scala.
Scala's language. Yeah, more efficient code, more scalable code, more powerful mathematical functions. Those are the three answers I think that I've been hearing.
Okay, and the last one. So Java 8 introduces kind of functional programming
Yep.
aspects into Java.
Yep.
So do you think if they will proceed with enhancing these functional features in Java, will Scala go out of business?
No, I think it'll be like competition. Competition is good. So this would be I think that you see Java 8 having some functional programming because of Scala, because of the momentum of Scala. So Java teams inside Oracle, wherever they are, and other, I mean, obviously Java open source community has lots of big players in it. Red Hat's a huge player. Various other players will have to compete with Scala, and the competition will push them. Competition is good. So we'll make Java better, we'll make Scala better. This is what I think, and that will be good. Good for the ecosystem. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and what is the development path for Scala? So what is the future of the language? How do you see it?
I didn't look too quickly at their roadmap at TypeSafe. I think it's being driven by TypeSafe. So I'm sure it's probably lots of enhancements to Akka. It's probably more data sources support. But I actually don't know the roadmap. I didn't have a chance to look at that before the presentation. I apologize. So, but I would go to their website or to the GitHub is I think a great place to go to really answer a question like that. I think on GitHub, if you get in the right set of groups on GitHub, you can pretty quickly see what problems people are running into, and therefore what a company like TypeSafe has to do to keep developers happy, to keep them working on their platform, right? And I personally, I didn't get a chance to do that, so I don't have a direct answer to your question. Only generalities. Sorry.
Okay, it's okay.
Yes.
What is the main minuses of Scala?
It's a good question. Presumably, you first have a learning curve, so it's always a minus to spend time seeing how the different functional expressions actually work, when to use them. So I think one minus is learning curve. For sure, one minus is learning curve.
How long is it? Is it difficult?
Yes, how much?
Yeah, I'm guessing. I think a Java tech lead can probably become proficient in maybe 3 to 6 months working on learning in addition to whatever the regular job is. I think if you dropped everything, you focused in on the language and you were a smart Java tech lead type person, probably 30 days. But most of us can't, I can't drop everything and just go learn one thing. Are you kidding me? It's no possibility for me to do that in my life. But if I was just if you're a Java tech lead and purely in an academic environment, I imagine it's maybe 30 days to being pretty capable.
I can share my experience.
Yeah, sure. If other people have, go ahead.
So I had just a chance to do nothing but work during 2 weeks, and I tried Play Framework along with Scala. So in 1 week, I was feeling myself comfortable with Scala, but after 2 months of break with Scala, I had to start almost from scratch.
So you learned it in 1 week and then forgot it in 2 months, something
So
like that. Yeah.
I was not proficient after 1 week, but I felt myself comfortable. But yeah, just to to make sure that you are really familiar with Scala, you have to spend more time without interruptions.
And you need a project. It's very similar to the chicken and egg problem we talked about earlier. It's like, we need to bring some development projects here and have people work on them continuously for 6 months or a year, and then we
It's
should
actually
be good.
similar to learning Chinese language in order. If you don't use it, you will forget it.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay.
But what is
Oh, I'm
the
sorry.
minuses of technical part? What do you mean?
Mm.
Of the language, almost of the language. not-
Of the language itself? Well, you know, everything is, let's go back a little bit. Sorry. I guess